I know what you're thinking, that I'm a terrible person, that I crossed a line most people wouldn't even toe. And maybe you're right. But if you'd looked into her eyes the way I did really look, you might understand why I never stood a chance. The moment Cassie stepped onto that back porch, everything in me shifted. It was supposed to be just another awkward summer barbecue. One of those friendly gatherings Rachel insisted on throwing even though we were broken up. She said she wanted us to stay close. No bad blood. I thought I could handle it. We'd been apart for almost 6 months, and I was finally starting to feel like myself again. But I didn't expect her to show up. And I sure as hell didn't expect to feel something the second I saw her. Cassie was Rachel's younger sister. The one I barely noticed when I was with Rachel. Back then, she was quiet. A little shy, always buried in a sketchbook or listening to music with those oversized headphones. But this Cassie? This woman walking through the crowd with the sun lighting up her hair and a slow, knowing smile. She wasn't shy. She wasn't a kid. She was fire. And when her eyes met mine, something in my chest pulled tight like a string I didn't know existed suddenly got yanked. I tried to play it cool. Pretended like I didn't feel the heat creeping up my neck. Like I wasn't watching her every move from the corner of my eye. She caught me staring more than once. Every time, she didn't look away. She just smiled, like she knew. She made her way over when Rachel was off playing hostess. It's casual, like we were just old friends catching up. "Hey," she said, grabbing a drink from the cooler next to me. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Didn't expect to see you," I said, trying not to sound as off balance as I felt. "I live here," she laughed. "Well, sometimes. I'm crashing with my parents this summer while I save up for a place." I nodded. She sipped her drink and glanced around the yard, then leaned in slightly. "You look different," she said, less polished. I like it. That threw me. I don't know why. Maybe because Rachel always wanted me to be more ambitious, more charming, more put together. And here was Cassie telling me she liked me exactly as I was. Something about her tone, the way her eyes held mine. It wasn't innocent. It wasn't small talk. There was a challenge in her gaze. Like she was daring me to admit what was happening between us. I looked away, but not before I saw her smile widen just a little. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of small talk and forced laughter. Rachel introduced me to some guy she was dating, tall, preppy, perfectly groomed, and I nodded and shook his hand like I wasn't screaming on the inside. Cassie watched the whole thing unfold from the edge of the yard, sitting on the porch, swing with a beer bottle balanced on her knee. When our eyes met again, something sharp passed between us. Later, just before I left, she caught me by the side gate. No one else was around. The sun had dipped low, casting everything in that hazy orange glow that makes summer feel like a dream you don't want to wake up from. "Can I ask you something?" she said, voice low. "Sure. Do you ever wish things had ended differently?" With her, I hesitated, then said, "Yeah, I do. But not for the reasons you think." Cassie took a step closer. Close enough that I could smell her perfume, something soft, like vanilla and heat. "Maybe it ended so something else could start," she said, almost like a whisper. I didn't move. "Okay, couldn't." Then she smiled, slow and devastating. "Good night, Rachel's ex." And just like that, she was going to disappearing into the house with a sway of her hips and a glance over her shoulder that set something on fire inside me. I stood there for a long time, staring after her like a fool. And even though I knew I should walk away, I also knew something had just started. Something wouldn't be able to stop, even if I wanted to. Asterisk, I couldn't stop thinking about her. No matter how hard I tried to push Cassie out of my head, she kept slipping back in quietly, persistently, like a song stuck on repeat. I'd be doing the most ordinary things, brushing my teeth, folding laundry, walking down the cereal island. Suddenly I'd see her face. That smirk, those eyes, the way she said my name like it was some kind of inside joke. It wasn't just attraction. It was something deeper, messier. Something I didn't want to admit to myself yet, but the truth. Cassie was under my skin. The more I tried to ignore it, the worse it got. It started with a message. It's just as simple. You left your sunglasses at the barbecue. She could have left it there, but of course she didn't. She added, "Come get them, or I might keep them hostage forever." I stared at the text for a long time before I replied. I knew the moment I answered her, things would shift. Boundaries would blur, but I answered anyway. I always do the right thing until I don't stand with her. I didn't want to. When I pulled into the driveway of her parents' place a few days later, Cassie came out alone. She was barefoot, in cutoffs, and a faded hoodie that hung loose off one shoulder. Hair in a messy knot. Sunglasses perched on top of her head instead of mine. She looked like summer. Like trouble. Like everything I wasn't supposed to want. "You really came?" she said, tossing me the glasses. "You said you'd steal them." "I would have," she said, then smiled. "You want to come in?" I should have said no. Should have made some excuse. Waved, turned around, and left like a sane man. Instead, I followed her inside like a moth to the flame. Her parents weren't home. She told me that right away, almost too casually. She led me into the kitchen, poured 2 glasses of iced tea, and sat across from me like we were just catching up. Like this was normal, but nothing about it was normal. She asked me about my life, how work was, whether I was still doing that thing where I pretended I wasn't lonely. She teased me about the guy Rachel was dating, and I teased her back. But underneath it all, there was tension. Hot and electric. Every glance lasted too long. Every laugh felt like foreplay. We were circling something neither of us wanted to. Name. Then, in the middle of talking about music, some old record she'd just bought, she suddenly stopped, tilted her head, and said, "Why do you keep looking at me like that?" I blinked. Like what? Like I'm a mistake you want to make twice. That knocked the air out of me. I didn't know what to say. But then she stood, came around the table, and sat beside me. Her thigh brushed mine. Her hand rested on the edge of my knee. I could smell the warmth of her skin. I didn't move. "I'm not a kid anymore," she said softly. "You don't have to pretend you don't see me." And just like that, it happened. I leaned in slow, unsure, but she met me halfway. Her mouth was soft and warm and tasted like lemon and heat. The kiss was gentle at first, almost cautious, but then it deepened, and every thought I'd been trying to suppress exploded into flame. I pulled her into my lap. She wrapped her arms around my neck, and for a moment, we weren't thinking about Rachel, or consequences, or how wrong this was. We were just there, all breath and skin and fire. We didn't go all the way that day. We stopped ourselves somehow. She pulled back first, her lips swollen and eyes dark with something that scared and thrilled me at the same time. "This isn't over," she whispered. And I knew it wasn't. That kiss had changed. Everything. Lines had been crossed, and we were standing on the edge of something dangerous. But I wasn't turning back. Not now. Not after her. I should have walked away after that kiss. I should have put up walls, created distance, reminded myself who she was. But I didn't. Instead, I let that kiss live in my bones. It played on a loop in my head, every breath, every pull, every whispered word. I kept telling myself we were just flirting with disaster, that this wasn't real. But by the time I was lying awake at night, checking my phone just to see if she was thinking of me too, I already knew I was in too deep. She was no longer just my ex's sister. She was the one person I couldn't stop craving. The next time I saw her, it was her idea. She said she was bored and needed a distraction. I offered coffee. She suggested my place. And even as I typed my address into the message, I felt my pulse spike. This wasn't innocent anymore. Never had been. We both knew what we were doing, and we were about to stop pretending otherwise. She showed up in jeans and a black tank top that clung to her in all the right places. Hair down this time, wild and soft like she'd just gotten out of bed. She didn't not just walked in like she belonged. Maybe part of me wanted her to. She looked around, gave me that sly smile, and said, "You always keep your place this clean. Only when I'm expecting company. Am I company now? You're something." She raised an eyebrow, stepped closer. "You always this. Smooth, only with you." There was silence, and in that silence, everything hung between us. The memory of the kiss, the weight of the risk, the thrill of being wanted. Then she kissed me, this time harder. No hesitation, no testing the waters. It was full-on body pressed to body, hungry and honest. I backed her into the living room, her hands tangled in my shirt, mine under hers. We stumbled onto the couch, lips crashing, breath catching, the world narrowing down to just the heat between us. She straddled me, leaned in, whispered, "I've wanted this longer than I should admit. Me too." Clothes came off in pieces, her tank top, my shirt, jeans peeled away with urgency. Her skin against mine was electric, soft and warm, like a dream I'd forgotten I had. Every touch from her felt intentional, like she wasn't just trying to seduce me, she was trying to memorize me, to brand me. We didn't make it to the bedroom. Right there, in the middle of my living room, we crossed the line we couldn't uncross. It wasn't just sex. It was something else. Raw, real. Like we were making something we'd never be able to undo. Afterward, we lay tangled together on the floor. The room still smelled like sweat and skin and secrets. Her head rested on my chest. I traced lazy circles. On her back, neither of us spoke for a while. We didn't have to. But eventually, she said quietly, "This is dangerous. I know. We shouldn't do it again. I know." And yet, I kissed her again. Slower this time. Sweeter. Because when you taste something forbidden and it doesn't ruin you, it owns you. That night became the start of something we couldn't stop. We didn't talk about Rachel. We didn't talk about what would happen if we got caught. We just kept coming back to each other, texting at all hours, sneaking around like teenagers, finding excuses to be in the same place at the same time. It was reckless, addictive, beautiful. But somewhere deep down, I felt it creeping in. Guilt because even though what we had was real, the world wouldn't see it that way. And one day someone was going to find out. And when they did, we wouldn't just break hearts, we'd set the whole damn thing on fire. Asterisk, I knew it would catch up with us. I think deep down, we both did. You don't play with fire and expect to stay untouched. But even knowing that, I wasn't ready for the moment. It finally hit the moment. Everything we'd built in secret came crashing into the light. And the worst part? It wasn't some dramatic discovery. No screaming confrontation. No one walked in on us mid-kiss or caught a stray text. No, it was just a quiet question from Rachel that shattered everything. "Are you seeing someone?" she asked casually over coffee one afternoon. I froze. It was a simple enough question. A normal one, even. We'd been trying this weird version of post-breakup friendship, where we pretended our past didn't sting and talked like old friends, catching up. But that day her eyes were sharper than usual. She knew something. I could feel it. I forced a laugh. "Not really." She gave me a look. "You used to be such a bad liar. Guess you've gotten better." I shrugged, but my stomach turned. Later that night, I texted Cassie. "I think she suspects something." She didn't respond for almost an hour. When she finally did, all she said was, "Then we have to be more careful." But careful wasn't something we were good at anymore. We were meeting at my place at least once a week. Every time she walked through the door, I couldn't keep my hands off her. It wasn't just lust, it was like being near her flipped a switch in me. She made me feel seen, like I wasn't just some ex-boyfriend left in Rachel's rear view. Cassie looked at me like I mattered, like I was hers. And every time she touched me, I felt like maybe I could forget the rest of the world existed. But the weight of the secret grew heavier. I Started noticing the way Rachel mentioned Cassie and passing she's been acting weird lately or she's always out. Never says where. I could see the dots forming in her mind, and no matter how careful we tried to be, there were always cracks. A stray scent on my clothes, a glance that lasted too long at family events. The fact that I knew things I shouldn't like that Cassie was sketching again, or that she hated red wine now. The guilt started to grow roots. And it was worse at night, after she left, when I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, heart pounding with the weight of what we were doing. Because no matter how right it felt in the moment, it was built on a lie, a betrayal. And the one person who trusted both of us was going to be the one left bleeding. But even with all that, I couldn't stop. One night, after we'd made love, in a haze of quiet desperation, I asked her, "Do you ever feel like this is going to destroy everything?" She looked at me, silent for a long time. Then she said, "Yeah, but sometimes things have to break before they can become real." I wanted to believe her. I needed to, because I was falling in love with her. Not just with her body or her boldness, but with the way she made me laugh when I didn't want to. The way she challenged me, pulled me back to myself. The way she believed in me when no one else had, but love isn't always enough. A week later, Rach called me. "Meet me," she said. Just that, no details. A warmth. I knew something was wrong before I even got there. She was standing outside the cafe, arms crossed, jaw clenched, phone in hand. "I saw the messages," she said, voice cold. My heart dropped. I saw everything, and just like that, the secret was out. The fire we thought we could contain had finally burned its way into the open, and none of us were walking away untouched. I didn't know silence could hurt like that. The kind that falls between two people when something breaks not from yelling or slamming doors, but from disappointment so deep it doesn't even have words. Rachel didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stood there on that sidewalk, phone still in her hand, eyes full of something I couldn't fix. Betrayal. Maybe. Or worse, confirmation. Like she'd always suspected she wasn't enough. And now I'd proved it. I kept wondering. "Why you never look back," she said, voice flat. "Now I know it's because you were too busy looking at her." I opened my mouth to speak, but I had nothing. No excuse that didn't sound like cowardice. No lie strong enough to hide the truth. Because I'd looked, I'd fallen. I hadn't stopped myself, even when I knew I should have. "I loved you," she said, "and she's my sister. Do you understand what this does to me?" I wanted to tell her it wasn't what she thought. That it hadn't started out with bad intentions. That Cassie hadn't meant to hurt her. That I hadn't meant to hurt her. But none of that mattered. It had hurt her, and it was too late to change that. Rachel walked away before I could say anything else. I stood there for a long time after, watching people pass, feeling like the world had moved on while mine had cracked wide open. Cassie called that night. I almost didn't answer, but I did. "She knows," I said quietly. There was a long pause. "How bad was it?" "Bad. I'll talk to her." She whispered, double quotes, "No, you can't fix this." She was quiet again, but I could hear her breathing, slow and shaky. "Do you regret it?" she asked. Us. Should have been an easy answer, but the truth was tangled. I didn't regret the way she made me feel. I didn't regret the way she saw me, held me, lit me up from the inside. But I did regret the pain we'd caused, the way we'd handled it, the secrets, the lies. And part of me was scared that everything beautiful between us was now poisoned by what it had cost. "I don't know," finally said. "I really don't." A week passed. Rachel cut off all contact with me, with Cassie. Their parents called. Once, confused and concerned. Cassie moved out. She didn't say where at first. Just texted me late at night asking if I could sleep, if I still thought about her. I always answered yes, but something had shifted. The heat between us started to feel complicated, heavy, like we were carrying too much history in our hands and didn't know where to put it. When I saw her again, She looked different, sadder. Guarded, we sat on my couch, inches between us, like we were suddenly strangers wearing the memory of something intimate. I should have told her, she said. It's from the beginning. I nodded. Me too. Then she looked at me, eyes filled with something hard and honest. But it wasn't. Just the secrecy, was it? What do you mean? She hesitated. Then Rachel told me something. Something I think you should have told me first. My stomach dropped. What? She said you were texting her, trying to stay friends, that you asked her to dinner a week before we started. That hit like a punch. Because it was. True. I had asked Rachel to dinner. Not to rekindle anything, at least. That's what I told myself, but to find closure. Maybe even validation. But I never told Cassie. Because I didn't think it mattered. But now it did. Cassie's voice was soft, but her words were sharp. Did I happen because she said no? No, I said too quickly. She looked away. I don't know if I believe you. That cut deeper than I expected. We didn't fight. There were no ultimatums. But when she stood up to leave, I knew it wasn't just about giving Rachel space anymore. We'd lit a match and watched it burn too long, and now we were standing in the ashes. Not sure if anything real had survived. Asterisk, I didn't hear from Cassie for 3 weeks. Not a call, not a text. The silence was worse than the heartbreak. It's because heartbreak, at least, feels like something. Pain has shape, color, weight. But silence just echoes. It pulls at you in the quiet hours of the night when you reach for someone who isn't there anymore. I kept thinking about the last thing she said to me. I don't know if I believe you. And the truth was, I didn't know if I believed myself either. Maybe I had reached out to Rachel hoping to find something that wasn't there. Maybe Cassie had started as a distraction and turned into something more. Or maybe I'd just screwed it all up beyond repair. One night I drove by her new apartment. I didn't plan to. I told myself I was just out for a drive, but the car knew where it was going. I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, watching her window glow with soft lamplight. I wondered if she was inside thinking of me, or if she'd already started moving on. I didn't go in. She didn't know I was there, and maybe that was for the best. Then, a week later, I opened my door, and there she was. Hair up, hoodie pulled tight, eyes tired. She didn't smile. Stee. She didn't look angry either. It's just worn out. Like she'd spent the last few weeks trying to convince herself of something and still hadn't quite succeeded. I'm not here to yell, she said, or to fix anything. I stepped aside, let her in. She sat on the couch. Same spot where we'd kissed for the first time. Same couch where we'd made love. And broken something sacred. I talked to Rachel, she said, quietly. She's not speaking to either of us. She says she's done. I swallowed hard. I figured. She also told me to tell you something. I waited, holding my breath. She said, Cassie hesitated. She said she doesn't hate you, that you were already slipping away long before I ever touched you. The room felt small, like the walls were listening, and she said, I was always the one who saw you. Even when you didn't see yourself, something broke in me right then. Not because it hurt, but because it felt true. Rachel had been comfort history, but Cassie had seen the mess. The broken parts, the restlessness, I never said out loud, and she didn't turn away. She pulled me in. Even now, I'm not proud of how this happened, I said. But I never used you. It was never about her. I know, she whispered. I just needed time to believe it. She stood, walked toward the door, then paused. Do you think we could have worked? That it started differently? Think we did. Work, I said. We just didn't know how to protect it. She nodded. Then did something I didn't expect. She came back to me. No grand gestures, no promises. Just sat beside me again, the way she had that first day. Close, quiet, present. I still love you, she said. That hasn't changed. I still love you too, but we didn't kiss. We didn't fall into each other like before. This time, we just sat in the truth of it, knowing that love wasn't enough, not always. But maybe, just maybe, it could still be a beginning. Not the reckless kind, not built on secrets and stolen moments, but the kind that's slow, earned. Real, the kind that gets a second chance.